Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Dan Grahn, and he is going to tell us all about Agentic AI, but this is a non-technical intro. And if you ever have been in one of Dan's webinars or classes, you know that he's very good at breaking down complex topics into very digestible chunks. So I think that's probably what we're going to have again today. If you missed his executive overview of generative AI, I will put that URL in the chat. I'll just give you the link to the YouTube video. It was also really, really enlightening. So I think we're in for a treat today. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a minute. But my name is Anne, and I just wanted to welcome you on behalf of ExitCertified, Accelerate, and WebAge Solutions. Among us, we've got over 60 years of combined experience in the IT training space. And now we've joined forces, which is great for you because we can share our curriculum, trainers, certifications, vendors, and a lot more. And just to let you know a little bit about what we do full upskilling programs for entire organizations. We also do customized courses for teams. So if you just have a department, we can do that. But if you're just one person looking for training, we also have a lot of dates and guaranteed to run public courses for individuals. And we will be running a promo just for webinar attendees. So you all can get 25% off any public classes. You just have to register before February 15th. You could take it anytime. I'll put the promo code AI 2025 in the chat as well. We teach a lot of different technologies. So of course, you probably knew that we teach AI, machine learning, and data science, but we also teach programming languages like Python, Java, .NET, cloud technologies like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Agile, DevOps, and of course, vendor-authorized courses if you're looking to get certified, Microsoft, IBM, VMware. We do have a lot of Microsoft Power BI courses that are public, very popular, so you might want to check those out. But if you're here, you may be more interested in agentic AI training. And we do have a course that kind of maps to this 1 hour. But of course, the 3-day training would be live, instructor-led, hands-on. It can be customizable. I know that URL is a little bit long, so I'll put that in the chat as well if you want to check out the details. And again, I'll put in the 25% off of public courses in the chat as well. But now it's time to meet Dr. Dan Grahn. And if you have not had the pleasure of having Dan as a trainer or a speaker, you are in for a treat. So not only has he been working in tech for a while and has spent over a decade working at the Defense Department, including members of the intelligence community deploying cutting-edge AI solutions. He is also a researcher in AI, and he has won multiple awards for publications in AI, and responsible AI is a big one for him too. All right, so he's got all the creds, which is great. He's got the receipts, but what I really think sets Dan apart is he is a true educator, which makes him a sought-after trainer, speaker, panelist, and he develops and teaches many of our AI and generative AI courses, including the Agentic AI course. And if you get him on a call, he's very, very good at pinpointing exactly what you need and being able to customize the class for your team or your group. All right, so with that, Dan, I will be here, but I'll go ahead and mute myself and I'll turn off my camera and I'll stop sharing and let this go to you.
Sure. Could I just get confirmation that my screen is showing up?
It is showing up. It says Agentic AI is trending.
Yes. So if anyone has questions during this presentation, feel free to drop it in the chat. I will not be distracted by that, but I will try to answer them in the flow of the presentation. So I think most people are here because they have heard the term agentic AI somewhere and that they are hoping for more information about it. And this is a non-technical introduction, so I'm going to hopefully give you the tools to understand, think about, and work with agentic AI without going into the code and technologies and different systems which are necessary to use it. We can save that for the 3-day training that was mentioned earlier. So agentic AI is trending. In fact, in about 2022, skip to the next slide, about 1 in every 2.7 million recorded words was agentic. But if we look at that trend, we can see that the trend started around the 1980s. And that early research was in sociology, not AI. And in fact, before agentic was in sociology, we had a interest in agents. Agents being the noun to the agentic adjective, verb, not sure. At its peak, in about 1920, agent was used in 1 in every 12,637 words, much, much more common than agentic today. So what I want to do in this talk is to first give a historical perspective on agentic AI. We're going to use that to talk about what the actual goal of agentic AI is and see how that plays out in practice. I have a brief demo that I'll show using Microsoft's AutoGen Studio, and then we'll talk a little bit about the future of agentic AI. But not being one to bury the lead, here are the takeaways that I hope you have. First, I want you to see that agentic AI isn't a break from tradition, but this is simply the next step in a centuries-long process of humans outsourcing agency. Second, that agentic AI is a move from having solitary AI to social AI. And third, that this is not magic. It's not a technology which is just existing and operating without understanding, but it's something that we can understand and manage in similar ways that we understand and manage our teams today. So, what is an agent? An agent is first a being with the capacity to act. This is based in the theory of action, and it's tied into concepts of free will and determinism. But if we think about the capacity to act, we have agents in a particular situation. They have some desires and beliefs about that situation, and then they act with an intentional behavior to achieve a goal. Another definition of an agent is a person authorized to act on behalf of another person. This begins way back in ancient Rome. It's always a good day when we get to go back to ancient Rome, where the heads of households, the paterfamilias, could designate slaves or male descendants to act as their representatives in legal matters. So to conduct business, to manage the household, all of that stuff. This evolves a little bit in the 1200s through 1500s in Germany, where we see a split. The development of the Aeternatus and the Ballivus, the Aeternatus representing legal affairs and the Ballivus representing business or commercial affairs. We see a split, a differentiation. Then lots of decades, centuries of legal establishment of agents and law with quotes like, whoever acts through another acts as if he were doing it himself. And we get finally to the Industrial Revolution and the rise of agents, what leads to that peak of agent in vocabulary around 1920. Because with this Industrial Revolution, we see lots of professionalization of industries and specialization. We see that people stop being solitary and being on homesteads and move to being more and more parts of societies and interdependent upon these complex social webs. We also see that the skills that each individual human has is no longer necessarily able to survive in our environment. I don't know if I could survive if I went out into the woods on my own, but I know that I don't have all the skills that someone in the early 1800s would have had when they did that. So, why do we care about this? Let's define an AI agent as a program or AI with the capacity to act on behalf of a user. So here, a user is going to give some of their agency, their a capability to act to the AI agent and to give them that permission to act on behalf of them. And then that AI agent is going to have the capacity to perform that action. Now, this mirrors the development of agents in our own world, an increase in specialization and an increase in agency. We can look at it like this. We have a graph, agency on the vertical axis, specialization on the horizontal. Right now, ChatGPT, and we could argue over this, is a jack of all trades, but a master of none, to use a common phrase. It doesn't do a whole lot on its own, and it's really good when you give it tasks that are discrete and manageable. Agentic AI at its core is about increasing the agency and specialization of our AI so that we could demonstrate this by an example. Let's say today with ChatGPT, you ask it to create a meal plan for me. I've done that. I'm sure many of you have done it. It's pretty good at it. It can create a nice balanced meal plan for a week. If you had a personal assistant, this personal assistant might be able to give you a meal plan at the start of every week. Here, this personal assistant is going to act a lot on your behalf. You're not going to need to direct the personal assistant all that much, but they're not going to be specialized in any one regard. They're going to be a general assistant to perform general tasks for you. On the other hand, you might be able to have a personal grad student, one that is able to do tasks like evaluate the nutrition of your meals. They have a lot of specialization. They might be studying nutrition, but they may not have a lot of agency to automatically do things on your behalf. The agentic team or agentic AI might be able to do something like both give you a meal plan, align it to the dietary restrictions of a guest who's visiting you, and order the groceries. So a lot of agency, a lot of acting on your behalf, and a lot of specialization, such as creating a meal plan, adjusting it to dietary restrictions, and preparing the groceries to be delivered. So this leads to our first takeaway, that agentic AI is a continuation of a centuries-long process of humans outsourcing agency. The things that we do today, like contracting an insurance agent or a real estate agent or a financial advisor, are us giving agency to those people to act on our behalf. And with AI, agentic AI in particular, we are looking to increase the amount of agency which we give to AI to act on our behalf. This is a long process, and it's one that's been about well before the advancement of the Industrial Revolution, well before the advancement of AI. You could even argue that simple things like a water wheel are just an outsourcing of humans turning a wheel to the water, an outsourcing of a task. So let's talk now about the features of agentic AI. First, there is that agency. Agents are going to perform tasks with minimal oversight or direction. This is really key. You want those agents to go off and do their own thing on your behalf. There is a specialization. So the agents are not just going to be general purpose, but they're going to be tailored to specific roles. You could think about this as kind of a Downton Abbey situation. You have a butler who's responsible for managing the household, maids who are responsible for cleaning, cooks who are responsible for the meals, and so on and so forth. There's specialization of the roles. And the third feature is a goal. You want the agents to both plan and execute tasks to achieve a goal. Let's look at that in the context of individual components of agentic AI. So in particular, we will define agentic AI as a collection of agents operating within an environment from a particular context and using a set of tools to achieve a goal. So that is, Agentic AI is a collection of agents operating within an environment from a particular context using a set of tools to achieve a goal. An example of this. Here we get to the Gen AI generated imagery. Agents, here we have some robots who are on an island. I have just imposed that they have been stranded there. They have this set of tools in front of them that they are going to use to survive and escape the island. We could change out the environment. So instead of an island, it's a city. And they're still stranded there. They still need to survive and escape. Then we could change out the agents. Instead of robots, they're humans. Still have the same tools, still have the same goal, still have the same environment. We could further change the environment and the context so that the environment is an office and the context is a business where their goal is to create a product. And we could change the tools from a toolbox to a set of electronics. And right now we just have the definition of a business. Because agentic AI, if it is just that collection of agents operating within an environment from a particular context, using a set of tools to achieve a goal, is something that feels fundamentally human. It's that we are taking our own agency, operating in teams, operating in a social context to achieve goals that we wouldn't be able to do independently. I don't know of a lot of individuals who could create an AI system from scratch. That takes a lot of people with a lot of different expertises and a lot of different knowledge to put together an AI system. Same with developing a hairbrush that gets sold to me. Lots of different skills, lots of different teams go into that. Some of those skills, the production has been outsourced to machines. And with agentic AI, we're just looking at these human processes, these human teams, and seeing where we can outsource our agency to the AI. So you can think about this too, like social versus solitary animals. Right now, we have lots of AI that are like snow leopards out in the mountains doing their own things. And we are trying to change that into bees, which are working together to form the hive, to protect the queen, to perpetuate these things. A move from solitary individuals trying to do everything to social agents with specialization that are much better at particular things and together have a collective intelligence that is more powerful than the individual intelligences of the AI. So we could say that, much like with the rise of real estate agents, insurance agents, etc., there was an outsourcing of our human agency to others. The AI is now stopping trying to be the mythical person out in the woods living by Walden's Pond doing everything for themselves. And AI is now beginning to outsource some of its own agency and developing social characteristics. Now, I'm not talking about any sort of sentience. This is totally within our control. But we are sort of mirroring the development of human society with the development of agentic AI. Now, what does this look like in practice? There are two main approaches to this. The first is to create your agents as members of a group chat. Think just a Slack channel with a bunch of AIs hooked up to it, and they can chat back and forth about what they're doing to achieve some goal. Maybe there's a manager in there who is sort of giving tasks out to individuals to do. Maybe the individuals are saying, hey, I did this, so-and-so, can you take care of that? And it's maximally flexible. There's no interactions which are prescribed. There's no process. There's no workflow. And this sort of responsibility is passed throughout the chat. On the other hand, is a bit more prescriptive of a method. The graph-based agentic AI is where we have agents as part of a workflow. They are plugged into specific aspects, and there is a process diagram or a graph which connects all these different things. And this can have a lot of flexibility depending upon where you set up the graph's connections. But more often than not, you're using this to impose specific flows on the AI, which I'll show in just a little bit. Now, if you come from a sort of project management background, you might say that chat is agile. It has advantages, it has its disadvantages, and that a graph-based approach, agentic AI approach, is process-based. Again, these two different approaches are very similar to how we manage humans, how we interact as teams, how we achieve goals as individuals in an organization. So let's look at a specific example here. Let's say that we have an insurance agency that a customer is coming to say, I need a new policy. Let's say they just bought a boat. It's a sailboat. They called it Bony Fingers because they worked their fingers to the bone. They got bony fingers. So a customer comes to the insurance agent who's an expert in this, says, I need a policy. And then the agent comes back and says, hey, I need some details, provide this information to me. And once they get the details, they're able to go out to a number of different insurance providers, get some quotes, and then evaluate those quotes for their particular customer. After they have those quotes, they're able to hand it off to the customer, say, here are some options. This is the one that I would choose. Here's why. And the customer comes back and says, hey, let's do this. In this case, the customer has outsourced their agency of selecting and evaluating an insurance policy to the agent, an expert in this field, who is able to go act on their behalf and solicit the quotes from a number of different insurers. After they've said, hey, good policy, maybe the agent hands off to a certified insurance support representative or service representative, and that person is going to reach out, say, here are the forms that you need to sign for the policies. Customer says it's done. They hand it off to the insurers. The insurers send back some policy documents, which are sent to the customer. All's done. If there is a flood which sinks the sailboat, then the customer has insurance. We're good to go. Where this feels like a natural process, this is things that we do in business. Where does the agentic AI come in? Well, with the advent of the internet and technology, we see that a lot of the different insurers are offering APIs where you can go and get quotes from them so that you don't have to call them up. It's a much more automated process. There's standardized forms and all that for different insurance fields. If we were to think of agents, we have the insurance agent, and we also have the support agent, the service representative. These are individuals that are operating within their areas of specialization, that are acting on behalf of the customer. They're achieving this goal and interacting with the customer when needed. Right now, there's lots of legislation. This requires certification, but it is imaginable that that could be an LLM, at least in some respects. Another example here is a software, generating or creating software, something that a lot of teams do. We could start out with a agent that is just responsible for generating the features for the software. They generate the features, they use a tool to add it to Jira or whatever the task management situation is. And with that generation, it's then handed off to a backlog manager. The backlog manager looks at some of the inputs coming in from customers, says, hey, these are the things that are important, and organizes the features and bugs into a backlog. That backlog can then be worked by some code writing agents who use the features and their descriptions to look at the code base, make decisions about what to change and where. And then if they have any issues, maybe there's a specialized agent for debugging. After they've written some code that completes a feature, there's a tool which generates a commit message, and it's handed off to someone or an agent who reviews the code before integrating it in. And finally, an agent releases the code off to the world after generating a changed log. Here, I think this is an example of things that teams do today, but that is much more amenable to the kind of agentic AI transition. Right now, we have things in software that can do things like code review. They can look for security issues, they can look for technical debt. That sort of automation that we've seen over the past 2 decades evolve. What we don't have is a lot of examples of features being automatically translated into code, or features being generated from consumer feedback. This kind of level of automation that's possible with the LLMs is an advance. And if you were to just tell a single LLM to do all these things, I want you to take this customer feedback and create a new software release from it, it would probably not do well. There'd be a lot of different components or a lot of different steps that it would be going through, and any tweak that you made to the prompts or to the input to the LLMs may have dramatic effects. And when you've broken this down into individual tasks, it ultimately doesn't matter what agent is doing the code writing. You can swap out that code writing agent. It doesn't matter what agent is doing the code review. It becomes interchangeable because it's fulfilling a role, it's fulfilling a function in a broader workflow, and it's not just trying to create everything. This is kind of the principle that is behind job functions at companies, where we're trying to say, this is the type of person who fits in here so that in this role, so that we can hire people for this role simply on the spec of that job function, that job role, instead of creating a brand new job description for each individual role that we have to come across. And so all of this should be going to an intuitive understanding of agentic AI, that it's much less about the mathematics behind how an LLM works, or how we're doing function calling or test time compute, all these different aspects of generative AI and these technical components. And it's much more about how do we use AI as part of our everyday lives, as part of our teams? How do we take the responsibilities which we have been doing in our everyday lives, in our teams, and transition them to AI? Initially, it may be a little here, a little there, or it may be that you find an entire workflow that can be automated through the use of agents. So let me switch here to a demo. This is the interface to Microsoft's AutoGen Studio. It's not an endorsement. It is an open source solution which lets you test out agentic AI through the chat-based functionality. So it doesn't do the graph-based, it's just chat-based. And it is not production ready. It is just prototype software. So it is pretty though. And here I have set up a team. This team has what is called a selector agent. And this selector agent knows all about the different agents that are in the team. And their job is to select among the agents. And in particular, This team is a support team for a mythical company called MindMeld, and the software just allows users to control computers with their brain. And based upon that description, I used generative AI to generate a prompt for selecting between these roles. I gave brief descriptions, I tweaked a few things, and then I put it in here to give it those instructions about how to select between 3 different levels of customer support. Now we have an agent here, which is the L1 agent or L1 support. And their job is, you're doing basic troubleshooting, directing to help resources, helping with installs, not a whole lot of complexity. Here, again, the system message has been generated by generative AI. It's written in Markdown. Sorry, we're getting a little technical. But it is written here from the perspective of that L1 support agent giving a description of what they are supposed to do. The same goes for an L2 agent who's more focused on solving technical problems, error messages, things like that. An L3 agent who is doing code, debugging of code, looking at actually changing the software itself. Now, one thing I want to call out here as we look at this graph, all of the agents are a part of this team. This team is using the team selector is using the GPT-4o model, but each of the individual agents are using GPT-4o mini. So we're taking a large model for something that requires a bit more compute, and then these other agents are using smaller models, cheaper models to do specific tasks. Now, with that up, let me switch over to this area, which is a chatbot interface. It should be quite familiar. So I am now going to simulate being a customer interacting with this customer support agent team. And I'm just going to say, hi, I need some help installing MindMeld 2.0. It's the latest release of the software. So right now, the team is going to first go to that selector. The selector is going to select an agent to work the response and then give that response to me. So here we have an interaction from the user that's going to the L1 support and then back to me. This is about the simplest form of agentic AI that we have. It's just called an agentic router. But let's say that I've gone through the step-by-step directions for a smooth installation of MindMeld, and I need a little bit more help. So I'm going to say, I installed MindMeld 2.0. It worked correctly, but when I launched the application, it says error, some numbers, brain not functioning. So here we're getting a little bit more specific. We're handing back to the selector, and the selector has assigned this message to L2. And L2 is now asking for information about the operating system, the version, recent changes, and offers a few your standard have you reset it question. So here's the L2, and let's say actually restarting the system worked. I would like to integrate MindMeld with my software. Is there a developer API? So now I'm getting quite a bit more complex. I'm not asking about a specific problem, but I'm asking about something that I can do with the software on the development side. So here it says we've now been directed to the L3, and they're going to give information about that developer API. So Based upon the inputs which I gave, the selector was able to route my questions to individual agents. Those individual agents could not only have different roles, but they could have different prompts. You could adjust the way in which they talk to the customer, the words that they use, how technical they get, the information that they have access to, kind of a role-based access control, and even the size and complexities of the LLMs that are behind them. Now, I see a question here about programmatically, is an agent a specific instance of an LLM model? I've been trying to kind of avoid assigning the agents to any particular LLM because these agents should be seen as self-contained encapsulations of some functionality. Inside the black box of that agent, it doesn't really matter how things get done. It's just that they get done. So today, a lot of the agents that we use are going to use one LLM. In my case here, I've used 4.0 in one case and 4.0 mini in a bunch of other cases for this demo. And if that might be an approach that I was use. It is the system prompt which I am adding that kind of context to the different agents, which tells them the different ways in which they're supposed to interact. And because we're giving that different context to the LLM, we're kind of putting it in, and pardon the very biological expression here, we're putting it in a different frame of mind and directing it towards a specific mode of interaction. That is how I would describe it. And yes, so the agentic AI is very different from foundation models because with the foundation models, these are just the LLMs that we have that are kind of the basis for these larger softwares, GPT, the basis for agentic AI. But the foundation models aren't really going to prescribe what you do with it, how they interact, what the goals are. And the agentic AI is much more about putting these agents out into the world that can act on behalf of the users. One example of an agent that I'm thinking of, have been thinking of, I'm not going to implement it because I do not have the time to do this, but I would love an agent which just turned on and off lights throughout my house based upon how I had previously turned on and off lights. That it would just learn from me in much the same way that a smart thermostat learns from there. Okay. So from this example, this demo, let's just have the takeaway that agentic AI is not magic. It is about taking these AIs, putting them in particular roles, and having them accomplish functionality. And this is manageable. If we know how to manage a team, we can manage the agentic AI. So what does the future of this look like? Just real quick to answer a question, does the scope of agentic AI go beyond LLMs? Yeah, one of the things that I have kind of avoided talking about in this context is that the agents don't actually have to be LLMs. They could be APIs. There's kind of a blending of the tools and agents. So really this broader environment, this broader the way in which this team interacts is the key of agentic AI. How you are working to make the AI social, to make it cooperate, and to achieve tasks that independently it would not be able to complete. So what's our future here? If we look to the past, look to the history, we have seen humans give up more and more control to other people in the Industrial Revolution throughout history. And so it's likely that we will see the same thing with agentic AI, that we'll be more and more comfortable relinquishing our agency to the agents in the AI. And at the same time, the rise of agents in human history didn't come without both risks and benefits. And to avoid against those risks, we established safeguards and accepted some of the risks. Real estate agents, insurance agents, financial advisors, all of them licensed, regulated, lots of different codes of ethics that they have to comply with. You talk about attorneys, there's a bar exam they have to pass. They can get disbarred if they violate certain ethics. Lots of controls to ensure that these people to which we give agency are acting in our best regard. Financial advisors have a fiduciary responsibility. And from a regulatory perspective, the US created the FDIC, the FTC, the CFPB, all of these different organizations, which are specifically there to protect consumers and individuals from people who would misuse the agency granted to them, who would violate that trust given. And we see this, we've seen this time and time again with the professionalization of industries. Physicians have codes of conduct, engineers have oaths in various countries, and so on and so forth. At the same time, another thing that we will see is an increase in the specialization of agentic AI. Just like with human professions, we've seen just physicians become family medicine, neurologists, rheumatologists, physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, nurses, x-ray techs, so on and so forth. Dentists have become dental techs, orthodontists, endodontists, oral surgeons. And what has really become important is coordination among teams. And so this should something that we should expect in the future of agentic AI. For example, if there was a patient at a hospital that had joint pain and swelling, you might involve rheumatology. Low mood, loss of interest in frequent activities, involve a mental health team. Frequent headaches and visual disturbances involve neurology. And the coordination between mental health, rheumatology, neurology there is going to be where we see the best diagnosis made for that individual. And that will transition the same to agentic AI, where we have multi-team coordination and cross-disciplinary AI really enhancing performance. And if you think about the things that are needed, the cross-disciplinary things which are needed to simply get to get a smartphone to us, you're talking graphic designers, user experience designers, human factors, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, process engineers, supply chain managers, all these different components that are needed to work together. And so with that specialization of agentic AI and with the prevalence of multiple teams, kind of a multi-team approach, we're going to see the best interaction when there is multidisciplinary coordination. Last kind of prognostication here is goal. Goals were going to increase in complexity and scope. Right now, I can go to Gemini with deep research and ask it to do something like write a report comparing and contrasting these 5 vacation destinations from the perspectives of ecotourism and culture. And it'll do that. It'll do it really well. That is a complex one. It doesn't have a huge scope. And in the future, we might see a goal like prepare a good vacation calendar for me for the next 10 years. And from a business perspective, we'd be talking about moving from defined projects to these broader initiatives of, say, roll out a responsibility program throughout the company, make that plan, start initiating the actual tasks to send out emails, write documents, and so on and so forth. And another thing is an increase in self-organization and coordination among agents. I'd call this kind of an agile approach, where the agents are able to say, these are the roles that I can fill, these are the things that I can do, and things will be able to happen autonomously which we did not initially plan from the system, but that given the broader mandate of accomplishing a particular goal, say organizing a business's data, these tasks fell out of it, and these workflows and processes and organization fell out of it. So that is kind of the way that I see the future of agentic AI. Again, it's not particularly about a technology, but it's about how human society developed, how that translates to AI and the sociality of AI, and how we look to the future. So some next steps, and then I'm going to go through and answer whatever questions I see. First, think about the repetitive and error-prone tasks on your team. These are things where a single AI agent might be able to help. In our case, as a training company, we have AI agents in the courseware development, not writing the courseware, but doing things like checking it, determining whether it has certain aspects of it, looking for factuality. We're working towards that, but we have different AI agents deployed in that process. You could also consider your business processes and look for where there's the opportunity to, say, lop off whole business processes and transition it into an agentic AI framework. And in particular, really look for those tasks where human agency can now be outsourced in a way which it couldn't before generative AI. So things where an LLM is going to enable the automation or enable you to stop doing something and allow the human to do things that the human is actually really good at, and not just the human doing things that because a human has to do those things. Next thing I would do is to try out agentic AI. The easiest way to do this is Gemini with deep research. Again, these are not endorsements. Another way you can try it out is Microsoft Copilot agents. And if you're looking for a more complex interface, you could try Crew AI, although that is getting more technical. And I demonstrated AutoGen Studio. If you have Python and can on your machine and can pip install it, then I trust you can also figure out how to use it. So that would be an option for you if you're at that level of technicality. And lastly, I would say get some training. And I don't mean this in just because we sell training. I mean this because we're at a point where these concepts, the concept of agentic AI, there are very few schools right now, if any, that have a course on agentic AI and how to apply it. This is the sort of thing that is developing so fast that we are working to find the research papers and the cutting edge techniques and translate that to an audience, a corporate audience, to make sure that they can go and apply that directly to the field. And so that kind of cutting edge research in the hands of engineers is something which is really demanded by the pace of innovation today. So thank you for listening. I really hope that through all of this, I will go back to my takeaways. You feel like agentic AI is a more understandable technology, one that is grounded in human experience and human processes, and yet will enable us to move to another level of automation and acceleration. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to go through and answer some of these questions. Feel free to submit more. I think I got some of them. I see we have the link. Good. So Lafthi asks, is agentic AI similar to robots having different kinds of processes all integrated into one flow? Yes. So if we look at something like a assembly line, say, a Ford F-150 is being built, you have humans who are working alongside robots and they're doing different tasks. And each of them could be viewed as an agent participating in the assembly process, the assembly workflow. That the reason why we've seen automation put into those places is they have very prescribed workflows. If you're painting the door to an F-150, you can pick it up, rotate it, spray it, and do it exactly the same again and again and again, and it'll work fine. One of the big advances that we're seeing now as robotics goes out is the ability to slightly alter parameters and to learn tasks really quickly. Hey, robot, your job is to pick up this Frisbee disc and put it on this pile of Frisbee discs for shipping. Things like that. And with LLMs, we're just getting an increased flexibility and an ability to automate in a textual office business situation, which we previously did not have. Another question here. A properly trained and fine-tuned AI can be used specifically rather than a simple LLM. Yes, so right now we have these foundational models like GPT-4, GPT-01, 03, that have been developed to be general purpose models. Their job is to do everything that a user could ask of it. And that means that they're very good at being ChatGPT, but not necessarily great at specific things. And with Agentic AI, you're not tied to one LLM doing everything for you, but you can pick an LLM or a different form of AI or a different form of automation that works really well for a specific process. Maybe something in drug discovery. We have protein folding LLMs. You could brainstorm something, hand it off to the protein folding agent, hand it off to another Monte Carlo simulation agent. We're not tied to LLMs, just like we're not tied to one particular LLM. A question about agentic AI being in tandem with artificial general intelligence, or AGI. So it says AI seems to be within the AGI tool. Maybe that's automation without AI. Trying to process that question from Vijay. I would say that artificial general intelligence, or the ability of an AI to do the things which a human can do as well as a human in all contexts, is kind of, we don't have a real good definition of it. Like, it's not hard and fast. Different humans have different abilities. Like, I wouldn't say that any particular human is generally intelligent. So I think it's much more easy to say this human is really intelligent in the ancient Egyptian literature, and it would be really easy to test that an LLM was really good at that. And so our ability to specialize the AI is key there. A question about the dangers that exist in this type of technology. Yes, so whenever we are outsourcing agency as humans, there's a risk. The big one which comes to mind whenever we talk about AI is War Games. Great movie. It has its problems, but it kind of raises that question of AI gone bad very early. I would say that the things that we're going to see here are very similar, or the risks that we're going to see here are very similar to the risks that we already accept as businesses. So if you imagine a business as an entity with agency, businesses give agency to particular employees to go do particular things. The IT person has admin rights on machines so that they can do certain things. The HR can see this certain data so that it can do certain things. And reducing the scope of responsibility and reducing the access of those different agents to their different areas of responsibility and adding in safeguards specifically related to those processes and technologies and roles is going to be more manageable than having one AI which does everything. It is easier to build safety around a team of specialists than it is to build safety around one oracle that cannot be replaced. The Steve Jobs of Apple, very hard to replace him, very hard to control him. He had the vision, he had the control. We don't want to put LLM or a generative AI in that capacity. We want to put it in the capacities of individual roles that can be controlled and the risk can be controlled for. In terms of governance, risk, and compliance and risk management frameworks as part of the AI program and organizations, I'm a huge fan of the NIST AI risk management framework because it builds upon the groundwork of the NIST risk management framework, which is standard for many organizations. And the AI risk management framework is being integrated into a lot of government organizations, and where government goes, a lot of organizations will follow because of government contracts. It's also really understandable, really easy to pick up and use. We offer training on it. So I would say that that's a good place to start, and really looking at the individual areas where you can measure and map risks, where you put AI into play is going to be key there. Abhishek asked a question about writing a method in Python based on some event in a Splunk log that involved invoke the ChatGPT API to perform a task. Would my Python code be considered an agent? So I would consider that part of like an environment. It's kind of an environmental stimulus, which is prompting your ChatGPT API, that agent, to do the task. So I would consider there the invocation of the task and the outcome of the task to be the agent, but that kind of trigger, that alert from the Splunk log, to be an environmental stimulus. I will put my LinkedIn in here. But if you search for Dan Grahn, I don't remember, on LinkedIn, you will find me. Any other questions? With so many AI and AGI tools being released in the market, is there a central governance organization body that is looking at all solutions and enforcing safety, etc.? There are, depending upon the country that you are in, there are different regulatory regimes. The European Union has the AI Act, which is much more strict about control and responsibility. If you just search for EU AI Act, there's a great website that will describe it. In the US, we kind of have a piecemeal approach to AI right now, where different federal organizations have different responsibility for the AI being deployed in their purview. The FTC would be responsible for investment AI, and Health and Human Services responsible for physician AI, things like that. We did have an executive order on kind of safety and responsibility around AI that's currently been revoked. But I do know that a lot of work is going on in the FTC, the Department of Commerce, and NIST to not necessarily like looking at and enforcing safety, but developing the tools and processes to allow organizations to do this safely. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. You're welcome to drop. I will hang out here as long as there are questions.
Dan, thank you so much. I'm just going to chime in here quick to see if anything else comes in. And just maybe while we're waiting just for anyone remaining, do you mind if I just share the screen for a second?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right. Just wanted to see if you can see my screen. This is the class that maps to this webinar, Architecting Autonomous Systems with Agentic AI. So this is the course we were talking about a little bit in the beginning, and then there's the, we did put the link in the chat about 2 or 3 times, but don't worry, we'll be sending it to you in a follow-up email too. Also with the recording of this webinar, so don't worry, you will be able to watch it back as many times as you want. So this is a 3-day class, and if you just take a look here, you'll be able to get all the details, all the skills gained, any prerequisites. We do have a couple, and all the class details, all the modules. But again, this is just a jumping off point. Dan is awesome at being able to see what people need for their own teams, and he can customize this course for you. If you get him on the phone, he'll tell you exactly what you need, and he's not going to let you take anything that you don't.
And that is a technical course. We do not cover ancient Rome in it.
Amazing. All right, I'll go ahead and stop my share, and then also maybe just see quick if we, oh, I feel weird. I'm like just talking, but there's no video. That's a little strange. Okay, there I am. Let's see. Yes, you will receive a link to the webinar. Yeah, and we'll do a follow-up with the course, the 25% off promo for public courses. And no, this is great. Dan, thank you so much. This is wonderful. I, again, as always, learned a ton like I did from your last webinar. I put that URL in the chat as well from the overview for executives, but maybe we'll go ahead and just stick that in the thank you email that you all get to, so you can have double Dan now with 100% more AI. All right. All right, looks like we don't have any more questions. So, all right, with that, yep, it's just a couple minutes past the hour. So let's, I'll release everyone out into the world. And until next time, we'll see you back here hopefully soon. Dan, thanks again. Everyone have a wonderful day. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.